Oh, guys, that's my bad about that. I had to change something around, technical difficulties. So, with that being said, welcome to the daily live stream. Once again, happy Saturday night, everybody. Do me a favor, as you guys come into the live stream, make sure you say what's up in the live stream. Make sure first and foremost you hit that like button, because it's just customary and the right thing to do. I appreciate you guys. Make sure that make sure. No, it's fine. It's just gonna do that because like I'm in the car, so it just does it. All right, guys, hit that like button for me as you come in. Yeah, because it's one thing for the sound to be distorted, but it is like a triple echo. I heard that. I don't like that. All right, guys, hit that like button for me as you come in. Say what's up in the chat. My fault, guys. If you hear echo, like I do know how to distort my sound now, and I have to do that for copyright reasons. So if you guys kind of hear an echo or it sounds a little distorted, like that's strictly for copyright reasons. Like I have to do that because if you guys know, YouTube will clip you for using other people's content if you're not making it unique. So you just kind of like have to do that. So yeah, if you guys see the audio sound kind of like robotic or anything like that, don't worry about it. It's on purpose. Make sure you hit that like button as you come in. Say what's up. Be interactive in the chat. My AI mod is strictly for derogatory and discriminative language. So unless you say things like that, you won't really flag the AI mod, but once you do, I can't override it. So if you are blocked or censored due to that type of language, I can't help it. So please make sure you're respectful in the chat. That's why I ask you guys to keep your comments cordial, respectful, and short. I don't censor you here. But if you guys disrespect any mods, subscribers, or supporters, then I have no choice but to, ban you from the chat until the next live stream. So do me a favor and do not do that. We're going to jump right into the live stream. I'm excited because I got a couple of great clips to share with you guys. We're going to start the live stream off with Nick Jones. He covered a conversation between Spike Lee and Denzel Washington. We looked at it last night. I wanted to cover it again because I usually start the live stream or end it with a Christian clip. Spike Lee asks Denzel Washington, before you leave the earth or when you leave the earth, what do you want to be remembered as? I believe it's as or for. And Denzel responds with a man of faith or a man of his faith. So I thought that was a great answer, and it really was a good conversation. So shout out to Nick Jones. He's a channel favorite. We react to him often over here. So let's jump right into the clip.
You always wondered why that app didn't exist. Now you can make it. Meet Replit Agent.
Wife loving, children loving.
Okay, let's get to Denzel Washington stuff. Because this ties very closely into the conversation that we just had about Kai Cenat. So Denzel Washington sat down with Spike Lee. They're having a conversation about the movie that they put out. What's the movie called? I forget what it's called. I watched it. It's the one with Denzel. He's like he's a record label executive, super successful guy. And then his son gets kidnapped. It was okay. I watched the movie. It was okay. It could have been better. The ending was kind of whack. But anyway, they sat down, they had a conversation. Spike Lee asked this question. He said, Denzel, what do you want to be remembered for? Oh, I see what she's saying. My wife texted me. She said, every time I do this, it goes to my hand. I don't know why it's doing that. But anyway, Spike Lee said, how do you want to be remembered? I want you to listen to what Denzel said.
Denzel.
Yes.
When we all leave this earth, we all will, what do you want to be remembered for?
A man of faith, a man of God, a human who's made a ton of mistakes, a humble man, God-loving, wife-loving, children-loving, who did the best he could with what he had. And I don't know if that was a quote from Malcolm X, but to God be the glory, only the mistakes were mine.
He said, Denzel, what do you want to be remembered for? No hesitation, he says, a man of faith. With zero hesitation. Do you know all the possibilities of what he could have said in response to that question? And rightfully so. Rightfully so. Look at the success that he's been able to obtain on this earth. Look at the notoriety, look at the attention, look at everything that he's been able to obtain on this earth and achieve. He could have said a variety of different responses to that question. But the first thing that he said is that he wants to be remembered for being a man of faith and being a man of God. Naturally, my question when I heard that is how? That was my question. How do you do that? How does one be remembered for being a man or woman of faith? How does one be remembered for being a man or woman of God? How do you do that? That was my question. And then I started thinking about Jesus, right?
Yeah, I really love that Nick covered this conversation. I think part of the way that we do that is how we live our life, right? Like, you don't destroy your witness by living in such a way where it discredits, what you're saying to people about Jesus, right? We do the best that we can. Yeah, sure, because no one is perfect. But I think a lot of that has to do with just being a lived example, like how we live our life. I love that Denzel answered that question like that, too. He had a really great answer because he included more than just, loving God, which is the top thing. And that's the first thing he said. But I love that he included, his family, his children, his friends, a man that did the best that he could. So Denzel always answers these questions great. If you guys have ever watched him do these type of interviews before, you know that he does them well. I just appreciate the way he answered it.
I started thinking about Jesus because here's the thing. I was reading this article, right? Here's the question. In what year did Jesus die? And there's a lot of different debate. There's a lot of different discussions. But according to this article, it says that the crucifixion took place during a Passover, Mark 14:12. And that fact, plus the date that John began his ministry, narrows down the date of the crucifixion to Friday, April 3rd, AD 33. It says there's also an argument for an earlier date, April 7, AD 30, based on an earlier start to John the Baptist's ministry and an assumed co-regency of Tiberius and Augustus. The later date seems more in keeping with the historical record. So why do I bring that up? Why does that matter? Well, the reason why I brought that up is because I started thinking, I'm like, bro, how does one be remembered as a man of faith? Because if we're being honest.
Hey guys, can you believe that Amazon made billions of dollars and only paid?
There's nothing more that I want than to be remembered for my faith. There's nothing more that I want than to be remembered for the relationship that I have with God. And there goes my leg. My leg is shaking again. I should get a camera, a leg cam. I'm not trying to be on no, freaky stuff, but I should get a leg camera and just show you how much my leg is shaking, because it's shaking. It's shaking. Hey, pause. No diddy. I started thinking, how can I be remembered, or how can we all be remembered as men and women of God? Because that should be the goal. As we just spoke about in reference to Kai Cenat, that should be the goal. Our goal on this earth should be to give God the glory. That should be the goal, right? So let's just say Jesus died, because there's a debate as to when there's a debate as to when the exact date is, but we know for sure it's over 2,000 years ago, right? It's over 2,000 years ago. But yet, there is nobody more popular than Jesus. There is nobody more spoken about than Jesus. There is nobody more studied than Jesus. There is nobody more remembered than Jesus. You remember what I was talking about in the intro to the stream? I said I was driving around with my wife, and randomly I got emotional. I'm not going to lie to you. I had a couple of tears in my eyes. I got emotional because I was thinking about Vadi. And I was like, Vadi Bakum. Vadi was such an amazing man of God. Was he perfect? No. Who's perfect? Just only Jesus. But he's such an amazing man of God, a representation of what a man of God is, a husband, a father, his ministry, the books that he wrote, the time that he devoted, his church, everything, like everything. It's like, bro. But yet he passes away.
I understand Nick's feelings here. I love Vodi Bakum as well. Like, he was a really great guy. Like, again, not being perfect, but just things that, you know, as far as how he served the Lord in ministry. I know Vodi had biological children, but I always told my wife he adopted like 6 kids or something like that from in Africa where him and his wife were at, I believe it was, and he taught out there. Had schools, was a dean. Like, he was just a great guy, and the word of God was important to him. Exegesis, he was so good at it. I mean, like, I really enjoyed listening to Vodi's sermon. So this resonates with me here when Nick says he really misses Vodi.
And people talked about him for like a week, and then it's like no one else. That's it. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why I say that is because Jesus did something so counterintuitive that to this day, it's still talked about and remembered. Jesus did something so counterintuitive that to this day, it is still talked about and remembered. You know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about love. I was thinking about love because what did Jesus do? What did Jesus do that was so counterintuitive that it was still remembered to this day, right? John 13, verse 31. A new commandment. When he had gone out, Jesus said, Jesus said, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and glorify him at once. Verse 33, little children, yet a little while I am with you. You will seek me. And just as I said to the Jews, so now I also say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. A new commandment I give you, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. And also, you also are to love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Jesus said, you love one another, just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples. All people will know that you are my disciples if you have love for one another. Why do I bring that up? I was reading this commentary and it said that humans tend to prefer taking rather than giving. Humans tend to prefer taking rather than giving. So instances of selflessness leave us amazed. Instances of selflessness leave us amazed because.
And that is very true. Like, we might not think like that, but it is true. Like, when we see someone do something and it seems to us as if they're ignoring themselves or they are putting others above themselves, that not only leaves people amazed, but sometimes bewildered, sometimes perturbed, sometimes they're confused. Like, sometimes the Bible says something to the effect of, you could heap coals on their heads, like burning coals on their heads, meaning you can confuse a person by doing so. So yeah, just by being nice to them based on how they've been treating you. So regardless of how they treat you, you still treat them with love, respect, kindness. Like, yeah, this is something that when we see these types of acts of selflessness, they leave people amazed. So I think Nick's making a great point here. Shout out to Nick.
Humans prefer to take rather than give. Jesus did something so counterintuitive that to this day, it is still talked about and remembered. He laid his life down for us. He gave his life for us. So just reflecting on what Denzel Washington was saying, that he wants to be remembered as a man of faith, that he wants to be remembered as a man of God, right? I think as human beings, there's not much that we can do to control the narrative or the perspective that a stranger has of us unless they actually meet us. Now, of course, with social media, with the internet, we can put out content, we can speak, we can release stuff to the public. And sure, that has an impact in terms of what people think about us, right? But unless you actually meet somebody face to face in person, you don't really know that individual. You don't really know their heart. You don't really know what they stand for. You don't really know what they believe unless you actually meet that individual. Because here's the thing, we have a lot of people, a lot of Christians, because what's the thing that people always say? There's no love, there's no hate like Christian love. That's the statement that you always see on social media. I see it all the time in comments on TikTok. There's no hate like Christian love. You know why people say that? It's because a lot of us, a lot of Christians, we do a lot of this. We do a lot of talking and we don't do a lot of action. We don't actually put action.
Yeah, unfortunately, Nick is making a good point here. I remember young Don. Shout out to Don. I react to a lot of his stuff over here on the channel. He's a channel favorite, and he made a video like that too. I don't think I can't remember if we watched it on the live stream or reacted to it. We might have, but I'm thinking about actually going back and doing it again. Him and Antonio talks. I think he did it in reference to Antonio's video, but I did want to go over that again. But yeah, Nick makes a good point here. Christians, they do a lot of talking, you know, and a lot of the times it's out of judgment. And because it's out of judgment, you know, and we're supposed to be God's people, but we're dealing with people so harshly, especially people who don't even yet believe in the Lord, which Paul tells us not to do that, especially to non-believers. He's like, don't hold non-believers to a godly standard, which, yeah, to me, that makes sense, right? They're not interested in God. They're not chasing God. They don't believe, so why would you hold them to such a standard? And because of that, we get videos like this. There's no type of Nick said it best. How did he say it? There's no type of hate like Christian love. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like that's crazy. Like, I remember the first time I started seeing those titles, I was like, wow. But what can you do? It's just like Drewski's skit, right? When the church gives room, for people to be able to make videos like that and say things like that because of experiences they have, what can you do about it?
Action behind our words. We just talk. We talk about it. We talk about it, but we're not actually about it. We don't actually do what we talk about. We just talk. We talk about what we're going to do. We plan out the things that we intend to do, but we never actually do it. We just talk about it. And that's why, from a worldly perspective, we have this narrative, we have this overarching perspective that there's no love or there's no hate like Christian love. Because there's not enough of us who are actually doing what we talk about. And the things that we talk about are what we read in the scriptures, what we know. We know what to do. We have the blueprint. It's laid out for us. We have the Bible. We know what to do. We know why we're here. We understand our purpose to give God glory. But yet we still fall short. And I think that's natural because we're human beings. We have all fallen short of the glory of God. We have all sinned. But I do think on a day-to-day basis, we have to be very mindful of how we are conducting ourselves.
You have timetoRiseSummit.com. January 29 through 31st. It's a free...
On a day-to-day basis, we have to value others above ourselves. And that is very difficult because, here's this word again, it's counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive. To value others above ourselves is counterintuitive because that's the opposite of what the world tells you. The world tells you to focus on you. That's what the world tells you. Focus on you. Put everything on the back burner. Put everyone else aside. Right? But in humility, we have to value others above ourselves. We have to stop focusing so much on our own interests, and we have to be interested in others. And we have to be interested in their best interests. And I think in that process, in that counterintuitive process, is how more and more people will remember us as men and women of faith, as men and women of God. I'm not saying everybody's going to remember you.
Yeah, I think Nick is making a great point here. Because remember, the initial question he asked is how does someone die and be remembered the way Denzel was saying he wants to be remembered, right? As a person of their faith. And he's saying, like, by living by that counterintuitive way, like, we'll do that. Like, by making sure that we revere others higher than ourselves, right? Like, more important than ourselves. So that means that we are making sure that when we do something wrong, that, we're quick to adjust our behavior. That if we know that we've offended somebody, that maybe instead of like walking to apology, like we run to apology. And like, this is something we all can improve on, because some of us might be like, man, I just had a situation where it took me 2 days to apologize to somebody. And it's like, yeah, that might have been a long time, but based on what God would have wanted, God probably didn't want you to take that long to apologize, because, then the person that you've offended, things are kind of settling at that point. So he never wants, things to sit and fester. So if anything, he might have wanted you to apologize sooner, but you just adjust. And, next time you try to do it quicker each time. Hopefully that offense is not a crime that we're committed towards a brother or sister every single day. But yeah, like, just making sure that we revere others as more important than ourselves. And scripture talks about this, so it's not like, this is not like we're saying like, oh, I shouldn't take care of myself, like I shouldn't look out for me. No, it's not that, but it's like, that is not a godly mindset, right? Like, scripture doesn't tell us to think in that way. So Nick actually makes a great point here when he talks about if we live in a way where we regard others as higher than ourselves or more important than ourselves, like we're interested in their best interests. I thought he articulated that well. then I think that that's when we start to get to a point where we are living most like Christ and living in a way where we will be remembered. So I think he made a great point there when he said that.
You in that way, because it's impossible. Because we are not God. We are not Jesus. We are going to fall short. We are going to make mistakes. We're not always going to say or do the right things. But I think we have to be more intentional with putting others before ourselves. And here's the thing, like I said, and this is not why we do it. This is not why we do it. But this is just what happens. Is that, going back to this verse, when we delight ourselves in the Lord, the things of the Lord, when we focus on what God is focused on, which is that sacrificial type of love, that agape love. Shout out to agape in the chat. When we focus on that agape type of love, that sacrificial love that Jesus displayed on the cross, when we focus on that, then God will give us the desires of our heart. But that's not why we do it. But that's just what happens in the process. And I think that's how we can be remembered by more people as men and women of faith, men and women of God. Because ultimately, if we're being remembered as men and women of God, then guess who's getting the glory? It's God. God's getting the glory. And I think that's what we all want at the end of the day. I think that's what we all want. Philippians 2. Verse 1. Verse 1, excuse me. Oh, y'all got an ad break. Okay. So if there is any encouragement in Christ, any comfort from love, any participation in the Spirit, any affection and sympathy, complete my joy by being of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant. Counterintuitive. That is counterintuitive. Who would have thought, number one, that God would come down from heaven in flesh? That's number one. Who would have thought that? Crazy. Number two, who would have thought that God in the flesh would take the form of a servant? That's counterintuitive.
I love that Nick is touching on this. I want you guys to go to his channel and watch the rest of it. Give him his due views. You know, like sometimes I react to the whole video, sometimes I don't. But Nick did do hard work in getting his videos done, so go give him his views, man. I love that he said it like this, because just the counterintuitive part about the servancy, right? Just the fact that Jesus came, right to serve and not be served. It's like that has been a stumbling block for so many, right? Like, why would God do something like that? Why would God come to be a servant? And it's like, I just love it, because this is what he means as revering others as higher than yourself, right? Like, God came to be a servant, and it's like it's such a great thing. So shout out to Nick Jones. Go to his channel, check out his content, check out some of his other videos. All right, guys, let's jump right in. Per the title of the live stream, we're gonna start off, but first and foremost, the thumbnail says featuring Ice, right? So let's start out with I think it was Benny Johnson who covered this, some of the top 5 coldest moments Ice has had, and I thought that pun intended was crazy. So let's jump right in. So the top 5 coldest moments. I was like, really, Benny, you're such a cornball. Such a cornball, Benny.
Here are the 5 coldest things an ICE agent has ever done. Share this to trigger your liberal friend.
Sorry, move my car! Ah! I am disabled! I have a brain injury! Stay back! I have a brain injury! Put me down! I was just trying to get to the bathroom and my fucking thing. As I get closer, look at this sad loser. He plays part to be an American, but when I come up to tell him my grandpa served in World War II and got shot down, was it in POW camp for 18 months, he runs. What the
You should be ashamed of yourself, man.
He is.
I love my job. Thank you.
You love your job?
I can't believe I get paid for this.
Really?
I do this for free.
I get
How long did you go to school for that?
over 7 years.
I went to high school. I make $100K.
People regard me as someone valuable. Like, what about you?
Well, you guys are ruining this country. You know that, right? Liberals already ruined it. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, can we see some bad work, guys? Hey, guys already ruined it. No number, no ID, no name. This is a democratic process. Looks like it. Can we see some bad work? Okay, can we see some bad work, guys? Hey, guys already ruined it. No number, no ID, no name. This is a democratic process. Looks like it. Can we see some bad work? Already ruined the country. Hey, man, can we see some bad work before you go?
Bro, did that ICE agent just say, I went to high school and I make $200K? Like, I know they're not. Are they paying ICE agents $200K a year? They're not paying them that much. Please tell me he's capping. That's crazy.
Tell on yourself, you know that, right?
Can we see some badge numbers? Hey, sorry. There is no front plate.
Oh, you are a bad, evil person. You need to be expunged. You need to go to another country. You need to know what it looks like. Instead, you're pulling over innocent people, not asking for any ID and just hauling them off. You all should be ashamed. How do you go home to children, to friends, to family? Do you tell them what you do for a living? That you arrest people without cause? That you just pick them up, put them in a truck? Is that what you do? Are you proud of yourself for doing this? Are you absolutely proud?
Thank you for calling.
Are you proud of this? Are you proud? You are an idiot. You do not deserve to walk the face of this earth.
He actually does it. It's in the 60s.
That's crazy, because it's like my wife just showed me that part that I was referring to did just go viral. Because I was saying that it says it here, ICE agent bragging about salary turns heads. ICE agent brags making $200K with just a high school diploma. And that's why I was like, bro, did he really just say that?
The director makes $240. There's no way he makes $200.
Yeah, he was just saying it, but still, like, ICE agent threat, 200K bolts fuels Minnesota outrage. That's hilarious. That's why I was like, dude, did this dude really just flex and say that he makes that much money? Yeah, like maybe $30.50 an hour. It might vary. All right, guys. So yeah, shout out to Benny Johnson for that for that clip. We wanted to start out with featuring ICE. Let's go to Laura Trump torches Gavin Newsome. Apparently, it has, of course, something to do with gender again and boys being girls and all of the sorts. So yeah, Gavin Newsome once again is in trouble in this area for something he did. So let's take a listen. Gavin Newsome saying now.
As a working mom, full-time working from home, taking care of a house and having 5 kids, I still...
Sure. My View host, Laura Trump, joining us now to react. And Laura, good morning. Thanks for being here. It's just last month we listened to Gavin Newsome go on a more liberal podcast with Ezra Klein, bragging about being the most trans governor in the country. So he seems to be speaking out of both sides of his mouth.
Yeah, Griff, if anyone out there was wondering whether or not Gavin Newsome would say or do anything and become whoever he needs to become to run for president in 2028, there is your answer. This guy flip-flops around more than an Olympic gymnast. Don't forget, this is not new for Gavin Newsome, though. Don't forget back in COVID, whenever he told everybody they had to lock down and mask up, this guy was gallivanting around the French Laundry, having a gourmet meal with his friends. He forced a minimum wage raise there in California, but then went out of his way to exempt his friends and donors so they didn't have to pay any more money. He told everybody that he was great with all men competing against all women in the sports arena. And then, of course, we remember whenever he went on Charlie Kirk's podcast last year and said, actually, no, I don't agree with that. Here's another great example of this guy just kind of changing his tune. And I think the problem that the American people have is all of this stuff is crazy. Whether we're talking about, men possibly having babies and becoming pregnant, even my 6-year-old daughter knows that is ridiculous and doesn't work. It is pure biology and it is pure science. But the Democrats, whether they're siding with criminals over law-abiding Americans or telling us that they believe that men can become women, they're losing the common sense thread of things. And I think whenever Gavin Newsome decides to run for president, or people are looking in 2026 now at these midterm elections, Democrats are going to have a hard time convincing the American people that they should support this kind of lunacy, because, Griff, that's exactly what it is.
It's fascinating watching Democrats struggle with basic biology. I thought the moment in a hearing in Washington when Senator Josh Hawley had Dr. Anisha Verma, an OBGYN, on and hit this question to her. Watch.
Based on the science, can men get pregnant? That's a yes or no question. It really is, I think.
I think you're trying to reduce the complexity of a lot.
I'm not. I'm trying to get, it's not complex. I'm trying to get to an answer, and I'm trying to test, frankly, your veracity as a medical professional and as a scientist. Can men get pregnant?
I think you're also conflating male with...
No, I'm not conflating male and female. They're two different things. There's
Senator Josh Hawley, he's like, this is extraordinary. Yeah, I played this a little bit last night on the live stream when we looked at this, and we watched Lucas, the amazing Lucas, cover this. Shout out to him. We watched Young Don, I think it was, go over this. Shout out to him as well. This was crazy work. I think we all agreed that this was insane, and so many people said that this lady should actually lose her credentials since she could not tell Senator Hawley that he was unable to be pregnant. So yeah, this was a bit much. I think that this lady did not, you should pick and choose what hill you're gonna die on. I think she definitely chose the wrong hill. Let's keep watching.
There's biological men and there's biological women, and I want to know, can men get pregnant?
What you were talking about is biological.
You're not going to answer my question.
Biological.
It was incredible, Laura. She's an OBGYN. She delivers babies, and she couldn't answer the question.
Yeah, see, and that was what made it worse. It would be different because, see, at one point, someone called her by her name, and she corrected them and said doctor. She's like, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So she wanted to make sure she was being called doctor. I'm like, that's fine. Then I figure out what kind of doctor she is. I'm like, oh, a gynecologist, OBGYN. Okay, great, whatever. And then this question comes, and I'm just like, dude, you got to be kidding me. Like, so you're literally delivering, okay, yeah, like I didn't know what to do with that, because it's like you're literally delivering babies and examining women, but you can't tell this man, this biological man that's asking you this question that he's unable to get pregnant. I just thought it was hilarious. Like, I was like, dude, this lady, if she loses her license, I wouldn't be surprised, but we'll see.
Yeah, and we have a Supreme Court justice who could not tell you what a woman is and define what a woman is. It's kind of crazy right now. If you went back 30 years and told us we were going to find ourselves in this space grip, I think people would have said you're nuts. But this is why people have gravitated towards someone like President Trump, who is direct with what he says, who doesn't pull any punches, and who can clearly define what a woman is and does not make two bones about it. We want to get back to common sense. People want it back in their life. This type of stuff just makes your head hurt.
They also want in their life the amazing guests you have coming up on My View, to include Stephen Miller and Madison Sheehan.
That's right. And we're talking to Tim Scott about the midterms. And look, it's the beginning of a new year. People have a lot of resolutions. 88% of people by this time have completely discarded their resolutions. Tony Robbins is going to give everybody tips tonight in terms of how to stick with those New Year's resolutions and how to make 2026 your best year yet. So I'm excited to see everybody. You'll see it at 9 o'clock tonight right here on Fox.
9 p.m. Eastern, a great lineup for My View. Laura, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Guess what? We're going to go to James Talarico first before I explain that shit. I really liked it. See that?
That's good shit.
All right, so before we jump into Keith Edwards, here's the thing. This is the reason why I don't think completely that the Republicans will lose the midterms. I mean, I said it before on another live stream that I'm a little bit more confident that the Democrats are going to be competitive because of people like someone we're about to watch on Keith Edwards' channel. Shout out to Keith, James Talarico. He covered James Talarico speaking on a podcast, and people like him, people like Jasmine Crockett. It's like, okay, like some people like AOC, Gavin Newsome, they feel like because of some of these people, the Democrats still have a chance. But my thing is that when you see Laura Trump coming at Gavin Newsom for the things that she is, because even her 6-year-old daughter knows the difference, this is where the reason why Trump was able to win, right? If the Democrats are going to run on something like this, right, even like this doctor not being able to tell Senator Josh Hawley that men can't become pregnant, this is where they won't win, right? Because I just think at this point, people are just not going to stand for this type of buffoonery. Like, they're just not, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, President Trump had an overwhelming amount of people that voted for him. There was also a great amount of people that voted for Kamala Harris, just not enough for her to win. But still, there was a mandate, and those people also knew that President Trump was very much about there are only two genders. So I just think it's just it's very interesting here, to see her calling Gavin Newsom out for this. But yeah, he's also being considered as a 2028 possible presidential candidate. So we'll have to see how this plays out. We're going to jump over to Keith Edwards, where he reacted to James Talarico on a podcast. If you guys don't know who James is, he is mentioned them probably since before they actually officially announced. So at first, Jasmine wasn't announcing that she was going to run. And then I think sometime it was around Christmas where she finally announced it. So let's jump into the clip.
Put it in my vein. One thing I think that we don't do enough, and I showed you a video on this yesterday, but I do think that it's important to keep showing that one of the most powerful things you can do when someone disagrees with you, or you are on the right side of an issue, is to meet with the person who disagrees with you and to talk to them. Talk to them about why you believe what you believe. this is kind of not really talked a lot about, but James Talarico went on Jubilee and he talked to some undecided voters about a wide range of issues. He also went on the New York Times podcast with Ezra Klein. I think this guy is a good communicator. And one thing about him that I did not know previously is that he is from a district. They've redrawn it now, it's bluer, but he is from a district that voted for Trump twice and voted for Abbott. So there are Abbott Talarico voters. And I will tell you this, if we have any shot of winning a state like Texas, our very red state that voted for Trump, plus 13 in the previous election, we need folks who know how to talk to people who might disagree with them. Or might be like, I don't know about that guy. I don't know about that guy with a D next to his name. So if you don't know, James Talarico did a very long windup, but if you don't know, James Talarico is running for U.S. Senate in Texas. There's a primary, and he is an option. And I think he's a good one. Before we jubilate, I actually want to watch this from the Ezra Klein podcast. Here is Talarico talking about the religious right.
For the past 50 years in this country, the religious right, a political movement, convinced a lot of Christians in America that the two most important issues were abortion and homosexuality. Two issues that aren't really discussed in Scripture. Abortion is never mentioned. Consensual same-sex relationships are never mentioned. And so it's remarkable to me that you have an entire political movement using Christianity to prioritize two issues that Jesus never talked about. And so I'm not saying they're not important. I actually think both of those issues are very important.
This is funny to me because it's like, this is where politicians who like to use the Bible, you have to be careful with them. James Talarico, he's somebody who I've said on a couple of live streams now, you guys, we need to watch out for him. We might want to watch out for this guy. He is very good at this. You know, he's very good at this, especially if you do not read your Bible often. There actually is something to be said about the two things that he said. There's nothing to be said about it. So yes, like it is some scholars will say Jesus talked about this and point to certain Bible verses. Other scholars will say it was more in a passive way and point to those verses. Nonetheless, like Jesus wasn't completely silent on these two things. He just might be willing to, I don't want to say twist Scripture, but interpret it very differently than some other theologians or biblical scholars.
But to focus on those two things instead of feeding the hungry and healing the sick and welcoming the stranger, three things we're told to do ad nauseum in Scripture, to me is mind-blowing.
How do you understand that? Because I'm Jewish, but when I read the New Testament,
that's good shit. Put it in my veins. How you counter this disgusting version of Christianity is by reminding people what Christianity actually is. Now again, is this the message that would work in New York City? No. Would that work in LA? No. Miami, maybe. Definitely in Texas.
I always come away a little bit amazed that politicized Christianity is so worried about gender, sexuality, and so unconcerned with greed.
You're preaching to the choir. Absolutely. Concern for the poor, concern for the oppressed is everywhere. I mean, economic justice is mentioned 3,000 times in our scriptures, both the New Testament and the Hebrew scriptures. And so this is such a core part of our tradition, and it's nowhere to be seen in Christian nationalism or on the religious right. And the Bible is all over the place when it comes to marriage. Paul tells us not to get married, and you see certainly many different kinds of marriages throughout Scripture. And the same with gender. You know, Paul says that in Christ there is neither male nor female, which is pretty woke for the first century.
Oh, that is woke. I didn't
see what I mean. Like, the way that he's using it for someone who's not very familiar with Scripture, they're like, oh wow, this guy's saying things I never heard. Like, Keith almost looks starstruck by this guy. That's why I'm like, come on, man. This is why I like James Talarico. Like, he's good at what he does. I'm telling you, this guy's good at what he does. Pay attention to this guy.
Did not know that.
And so, yeah, again, it's because religion is being used to control people and accumulate power and wealth for those at the top. This is a tale as old as time, and it is not unique to Christianity. Powerful people will always see religion
as a tool to make more money and be able to keep people in line.
Wow. That is a powerful message, and I gotta say, it goes very, very nicely into the next clip. James Talarico talks to this Texas voter who's undecided about welfare queens, and I love who he says is the real welfare queen in this country. You might know the answer.
Republicans in D.C. are trying to raise premiums on some Americans. That will end up raising premiums on all of us. Right now, they're cutting food assistance for hungry kids and working parents. That's going to end up raising grocery prices for all of us. And so they may think that they're just attacking some Americans, but in fact, they're attacking all Americans.
I want to focus on the religious aspect, because I agree.
Yeah.
I have a very Christian background.
Yeah.
But if you look at major religions, including Christianity, it is not a focus on a political system. It's a focus on individual responsibility. And when the political system takes away the individual responsibility and says, don't worry, the government's going to take care of you, you are absolutely going to catch people who need that. And it's a hand up, and it helps them. But you're also going to take away from the individual responsibility, which is needed to get out of those situations. So when you talk about food stamps and healthcare and helping, how do you balance that? Because I haven't heard a good democratic argument of, great, let's help people, but how are you? There are nasty people. There are welfare queens. There are nasty people who take advantage.
Why did the editor go to this person when they said welfare queen?
Queens. There are nasty people who take advantage of the system and take away from those who earned it, take away from those who need it. So how are you going to take that into account? How are you going to make sure we cover that risk as well?
The biggest welfare queens in this country are the giant corporations that don't pay a penny in federal taxes. The biggest welfare queens are the CEOs who get a tax deduction for flying on a private jet. It's not hungry kids. It's not working parents who work multiple jobs to provide for their families. I agree with you that we need individual responsibility, and I don't want to create a culture of dependency. I want a hand up and not a handout. You know, I believe that you don't give a man to fish, you teach a man to fish. But if you're going to take your friend out on a boat for the day to teach him how to fish, you want to make sure he had breakfast that morning. You want to make sure he's not sick, because that allows him to learn how to fish. Again, I was a public school teacher, so I saw how when kids showed up hungry, they couldn't learn that day. Even my brightest students, even my hardest working students.
See, this is what I mean. This dude is good, man. He's good. I'm telling you, he knows how to relate to people. He knows how to talk to, and being a public school teacher is even, because now he gets to encounter some of the worst situations. So I'm like, you know, he's using God, and he's super charismatic, and he articulates himself well, you know, and then he looks like I'm just like, oh God, like, Jesus, help me, Lord, because this is what it means by a wolf in sheep's clothing. And I know that people can't see that. I can tell just by how starstruck Keith is by him.
Couldn't succeed, couldn't pull themselves up by their bootstraps when they didn't have boots. That's what I'm trying to fix in this country.
That is a powerful message. And that's something that I don't think Democrats do enough of. We don't turn the talking points around on them. You know, we are always in defense mode. We're always in defense mode. James Talarico operates from a yes and. Yes, I want to make sure that we're not giving handouts, but we're giving a hand up. Is that what he said? I think he said that. And the biggest welfare queens in this country are the CEOs, billionaires, and corporations, which is actually true. There are so many tax breaks we give these people. Elon Musk wouldn't exist if he did not have our money funneling into his companies. And we just saw this week that Elon Musk's AI best friend Grok, he's signing a contract with the Pentagon. SpaceX is funded by our money. I'm not worried about people trying to get by. Most people, 99.9% of people, want to, first off, be self-sustaining. Secondly, are good people and aren't trying to rip anyone off. You know how many people, when I worked in television, where when a show would end, so many people would be like, I'm not gonna apply for unemployment insurance because I don't feel right. Like, there's so many people like that. Well, by the way, if you do get unemployed, you pay into that, take the money. But there's so many people who aren't trying to rip anyone off, and thank God these programs do exist because they really do help people
be able to get a leg up. Poverty is one of the hardest things to get out of. It's a trap. It's next to impossible to climb out of it. And I think the government's role should not be obviously to make people dependent, but to give them a ladder to get out of a hole. That's one thing we could do. All right, let's watch this.
Unless it means providing health care to the sick, or funding food assistance for the hungry, or raising the minimum wage for the poor. It seems like they want to base our laws on the Bible until they read the words of Jesus. Welcome the stranger, liberate the oppressed, put away your sword, sell all your possessions and give the money to the poor. I'm not exactly sure a Christian nation is really what these people want. I believe the separation of church and state is sacred, but I do think if these people are going to call for a Christian nation, they need to reach for all of it. I fought the bill to require the 10 Commandments posted in every classroom, and I've often wondered, instead of posting the 10 Commandments in every classroom, why don't they post money is the root of all evil in every boardroom? Why don't they post do not judge in every courtroom? Why don't they post turn the other cheek?
Look, and you see, like, his face looks like, oh my God, like, I'm so impressed by what he's saying. And I'm like, dude, he's not even quoting scripture right. Money is the root to all evil in every boardroom. The Bible doesn't say money is the root to all evil. It says the love of money is. So it's like, he's not even saying it right. But to people who don't read the Bible, they're going to think this guy is so charismatic and he's so godly. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to throw up in my mouth watching this, because people who don't even know, he's literally a wolf in sheep's clothing, and people aren't going to be able to spot this.
In the halls of the Pentagon. Or it's easier for a camel to pass the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into the kingdom of heaven.
I'm like, James, they're already dead. He's like, push. What about this? What about this in the Bible?
On the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. This is the inconsistency I'm trying to call out, because they're using my tradition. They're speaking for me. And so I think I have a special moral responsibility to combat Christian nationalism wherever I see it. These politicians.
Wow. That was radical. I want to watch one more. Do you want to watch one more? All right.
Immigrants make America stronger and richer.
The online energy medicine training is a profound online.
Hi, Terrence. Nice to meet you.
I'm kind of tough. I'm not sorry.
Where we disagree, I think, is this idea that immigrants as a whole are a drain on this country. That's where I strongly disagree. Because,
again, Texas, right? Like that. This is a big topic.
These immigrants are doing jobs that native-born Americans won't do. And I'll give you an example.
I distribute. How do you know that?
I'll give you an example. Let me give you an example.
Who did you ask to say they don't want that job?
I talked to an avocado farmer in California. He's been running this farm for 20 years. He said he has never had a native-born American apply to work for one of his jobs.
And let me ask you a question. Real quick. Okay. How many black people are in California?
In Los Angeles or
in California in total?
I don't know. It's
California. It's under 7% now. He doesn't have enough people that need jobs in California for you to make that statement toward Texas.
It's not even that
Texas,
jobs.
More black people stay in Texas. More foundational white Americans stay in Texas.
Let's just talk holistically. There are 7 million jobs.
Holistically doesn't work for everyone.
No, I'm talking globally about the economy. There are 7 million jobs that are unfilled in this country. We have more jobs than we do workers in America right now. And these are, as you know, some of the toughest jobs, right? Picking our fruit, taking care of our children and our elders, paving our highways. These are jobs that are difficult, and the research shows that undocumented immigrants are really just competing against other recent immigrants. They're not competing with native-born Americans who, in many cases, whether it's that avocado farm or whether it's other industries across the country, native-born Americans will not sign up to mow our lawns. And so if we go after these immigrants, we're not just hurting them and their families and their ability to live the American dream, we're hurting the entire economy. We're hurting ourselves. And then I'll go one step further. Those immigrants go on oftentimes to create jobs. Half of all Fortune 500 CEOs are immigrants.
I forgot about that. That is, first off, true. Second, we don't say that enough. Also, we're all, I mean, this is so oversaid, but we're all immigrants. Very few of us were born here. Okay? Like our ancestors. Obviously, I was born here and so were you. But many of us got here some way. Not many of us are native to this country, and it's just so. I mean, it's just it's killable. It's all this time. Anyways, this guy, he's got the juice, in my opinion. He's got the juice. He's got that X factor. He's got something special. It's a shame it's happening in Texas because even if he makes it past the primary, he'll really hard to win. But I think someone like this could be a shot in the arm to Democrats, not only in that state, but across the country. I mean, it is really just showing a different way to do politics. That's what I think is so exciting about this, is it's just a different way to be a Democrat. And I do love that Democrats can come in all different shades of blue. Okay. All right. Okay. Feel more energized. Hope you are too.
Keith is mesmerized by James. No, Keith, no. All right, but I knew that would happen, so I'm not even that mad about it. We're going to go over to the next clip, but we're going to definitely keep watching James Talarico and Jasmine Crockett go at it in Texas, because I think that is going to be a good race. Right now, she's leading, but she is doing well amongst the African Americans, amongst, I believe, Latino women, but she is not doing well with young white men, and I believe it is young Latino men. So we will continue to watch and see how that goes. Let's jump into the next clip.
Switch to TurboTax and file your own taxes free in the app if you didn't file with us last year. Just file with TurboTax Do It Yourself by February 28th. Download now.
All right, shout out to Young Don. He has the panel up. Kyle Kulinski versus Michael Knowles. We're going to see them go a little bit head-to-head here. But shout out to Young Don for covering this, so let's take a listen.
The United States and the West.
Greenland is a part of NATO.
Is there anything Trump can do, Michael Knowles, that you would say, I condemn it, and you hop off the Trump train, or are you going to tickle his taint for the rest of your fucking life?
Well, there have been plenty of Trump policies that I've criticized because he's only right about 99.78% of the time. So the First Step Act, I thought, was a misstep. But I would say the rest. Excuse me. I would say the rest of the administration is.
But that's exactly what he's doing. Just fucking double hand gripping, doing the gawk 3000, bro. We got our boy Kyle Kulinski taking a big dub, embarrassing the fuck out of this boy Michael Knowles, man, making him look goofy. Although, really, he just makes himself look goofy on a regular basis. Everyone's talking about this clip, man. Let's go ahead and watch this exchange.
To truly appreciate the absolute savagery of Kyle's burn, we must first listen to the conversation that led up to Michael's utter destruction.
Michael Knowles, I guess the argument against what Trump is doing is that many people who voted for Trump bought into the concept that what America first was take care of what's happening in your own backyard and stop meddling in foreign affairs.
Right.
And now they're waking up almost on a daily basis to seeing Donald Trump proudly and aggressively talking about meddling in all sorts of foreign affairs.
Yeah.
Is there a contradiction or hypocrisy or even a betrayal of voters going on here?
Not at all. First of all, Venezuela is in our own backyard, and it's been the policy of the United States in 1803 to manage the Western Hemisphere.
Wow.
So that, that's a cornerstone of American foreign policy. I think it is charming that Dave is defining America first in the way that he prefers, and I think there are plenty of people who wish to do that. But Dave, though a very popular podcaster, never won a presidential election, and Trump has been clear on what he means by America first, the political movement that...
I never heard that nigga talk about Venezuela when he was running for president. What you mean he's been clear? I thought this was the president of no wars, no new wars. Huh? Wait a second.
He built that people voted for in his coalition.
See, and Trump did say that when he was running. Like, he did say he wanted to stop wars and things like that. But I even, shout out to Don, I even mentioned this because when I checked this video out, I said, yeah, Don, he did mention this. So on his campaign trail, if you guys were watching Trump campaign, like, he definitely did talk about 3 particular places on his campaign trail. He talked about Venezuela, he talked about Panama, and he talked about Greenland. These were 3 places that he did mention as he was campaigning throughout the United States. It just depends on how many nights of campaigns you watch, right? Some people watch most of it, and sometimes some people watch every single night, no matter where he's at, whether he's in Nebraska or Michigan or New York, and some people only watch certain states. So, yeah, I watched a lot of his campaign trail, so I know for sure he talked about Venezuela, Panama, and Greenland.
Y'all remember him talking Greenland? Do you remember that? I don't remember him mentioning Greenland when he was running for president.
Since the beginning, President Trump campaigned the first time around on destroying ISIS. So obviously that does not mean that America's only going to look inward. President Trump has carried out attacks, military operations that were extremely successful in Iran, in Syria, and Afghanistan, obviously in Venezuela. He's been talking about taking Greenland and even invading America's evil top hat, Canada, though I think he's mostly joking about that one, since the beginning.
You think? That's the crazy part. Nobody knows with this guy. Everybody's like, I think he's joking about invading Canada. Even the people who support him, I think he is. Who thinks that's a good idea? Is that where we are now? Are we just going back to the fucking 1600s? Are we just now invading sovereign nations and colonizing people and just taking their shit by force?
And so that's what that means. And what it comes down to is that America is a global empire. We just are. People can be upset about that, but unless your geopolitics comes strictly from Reddit, if your geopolitics actually comes from history, you recognize that we've been an empire since the Louisiana Purchase, okay? And we've been a muscular global empire since the Second World War. So President Trump's vision, I think, actually rejects 2 extremes. It rejects a conservative isolationism, and it rejects liberal internationalism, and it posits a conservative imperialism that says that we are going to recognize our role in the world, but we are going to pursue that role in limited ways with America's interest at heart. So there's been no regime change in Venezuela. We're talking about regime change in Venezuela. The regime is still in place. What we did was depose the leader. We left the vice president in place, and we said, act in a way that is appropriate in accordance with the law and our interests, or we're going to kill you. That's very different than a Bushy-era neocon regime change in Iraq. Even when we're talking about Iran...
How is he even saying this as a supposed Christian? Now, again, we know Christianity means nothing. It has always been a tool of white supremacy to control people, especially women and black people. That's what Christianity has always been about. Let's keep it 1,000. But beyond that, it's like, okay, hey, head of a foreign sovereign state, if you don't do what we want you to do, we're just going to kill you. Why? How? Like, what is the logic behind that? At this point, why not just fucking invade Mexico and just go down Central America and then go into South America and just take all of it? Why stop there? Why not just dominate the entire world? Why not do that?
Trump administration has not gone in a particularly overt way yet, but even there we would be talking about a restoration of the Pahlavi regime, most likely, that goes back to 1925. So I grant there are all sorts of risks to interventions, but we're the global empire, and frankly, even the American Revolution comes out of wars of global empire. It comes out of the 7 Years' War, which itself was a derivation of the War of Austrian Succession. To pretend that we don't have a role in geopolitics is to ignore all of American history.
Okay, Carl Gillespie, I can see you grimacing through a lot of what Michael was saying there. You said Trump says the U.S. will run Venezuela and he threatens Colombia and Mexico. Arrest this psychotic motherfucker. Before I get you...
That we don't have a role in geopolitics is to ignore all of American history.
Okay, Carl Gillespie, I can see you grimacing through a lot of what Michael was saying there. You said Trump says the U.S. will run Venezuela.
When I got to watch this earlier, the whole time he's talking, Kyle Kalinski's making all these faces. Shout out to Kyle. You guys that don't know who Kyle is, he's from Secular Talk on YouTube, so you can go check his channel out. And we watch Kyle on here often. I react to a lot of his stuff. But yeah, Kyle's like grimacing the whole entire time this is happening because he's like, this guy is full of it. So like, watch exactly how he starts off responding.
Venezuela, and he threatens Colombia and Mexico, arrest this psychotic motherfucker. Before I get you to expand on that thesis, I mean, the point I was making to Dave, where I sit with this, because I've had a bit of time to look at this play out, is you look at Maduro. Everyone thought, my God, this is going to be World War III. Actually, Maduro's going to end up in a New York courtroom, and he's been got rid of. Everyone seems to agree that's a good thing for not just the Venezuelan people, but the world. No American troops died in what was an incredibly efficient surgical military strike to get him out of there.
A lot of Venezuelan citizens, I'm glad, that Pierce doesn't think that's significant or important, that the lives of Americans are worth more. The soul of an American, a white American, is worth more than the soul of a brown Venezuelan. Everybody knows that. Come on.
And if you have a more compliant leader of Venezuela, albeit part of the same regime, that can probably only be a good thing. If you look at the argument about Greenland, for example, I'd be struck by some of the people that I didn't expect to think this was a good idea. There was a British general last week talking about this, saying that from a strategic security point of view, it would make perfect sense for America to have Greenland. And is there a deal to be done? He didn't think invading it was the right thing, and nor do I. But is there a deal to be done with 60,000 people who live in Greenland that could actually improve the security of the United States and the West?
Greenland is a part of NATO. Greenland is an ally to the United States. America has never been barred or restricted from setting up military posts in Greenland and having if we wanted to send ships over to Greenland.
Historically, this hasn't been a problem, so I'm just hoping that it will just remain like that. At one point in time, the United States had 17 military bases over there. Now we're down to 1. We had 10 to 12,000 military personnel over there. We're down to under 300, probably under 200 at this point. So I just hope that things are able to be just built back.
To secure it more, that's never been a problem. The fuck?
Against the obvious threat from China and Russia and so on. And I can go through the others. Iran, getting rid of the Ayatollah and the mullahs is unquestionably a good thing for the world. It's how you do these things and whether you plan and prepare properly for what follows next that I think are the debatable points. And history says that's normally, unfortunately, been very badly done. But this is what I meant when I said to Dave that I understand the argument. I may not agree with all of it, but I do understand the logic to what Trump is doing here. Do you?
No, because we don't have a right to act like this around the world. We're supposed to be a nation among nations, not a nation above nations. And they used to at least lie to us in the past and say that this is good for the world and we're spreading freedom and democracy. Now they don't even bother to lie. Now it's naked, rank, disgusting.
Kyle, he said now they don't even bother to lie. You can't get mad at him. Some people are like, God, you're being so disgusting with it and treacherous. And that's what he said. That's why he's like, it's naked, it's rank. And listen, this is how Kyle is on the show. He's very blunt, he's very straightforward. So it just is what it is. All right, let's keep watching.
Imperialism.
And the mullahs.
Got more than 50 cameras across the country following law enforcement in real time. 3 hours of live policing every Friday.
Is unquestionably a good thing for the world. It's how you do these things and whether you plan and prepare properly for what follows next that I think are the debatable points. And history says that's normally, unfortunately, been very badly done. But this is what I meant when I said to Dave that I understand the argument. I may not agree with all of it, but I do understand the logic to what Trump is doing here. Do you?
No, because we don't have a right to act like this around the world. We're supposed to be a nation among nations, not a nation above nations. And they used to at least lie to us in the past and say that this is good for the world and we're spreading freedom and democracy. Now they don't even bother to lie. Now it's naked, rank, disgusting imperialism where they say we're going to take the oil, and the point is that we're going to take the oil. We're going to take the minerals. We're going to take the precious metals. We're doing this for our corporations. We're doing it for the Epstein class, the billionaires. And this, to piggyback on what Dave Smith said, is frankly not what many of the MAGA voters thought they were signing up for. They thought America First actually meant America First. By the way, you also replaced the Maduro regime with the Maduro regime. Congratulations on that. Right. It's also been now a week straight of pro-regime protests. Now you have roving gangs of Venezuelan militias that are kidnapping Americans. But again, I come back to the fundamental point, which is if you sign on to stuff like this, you're saying might makes right and the law of the jungle is back. What you're saying is China has a right to go into whatever smaller country they want and depose the leader and say we're doing it because we can and we have the right to do it and we have bigger guns and there's nothing you can do to stop it. So they're never going to address that fundamental question, which is why do we have a right? Do we actually believe in international law, or was that all a joke? Are we rolling the clock back to the 1700s and the 1800s, and we're going super primitive style here? And I think the answer to that is yes, they want to go super primitive style.
International law goes back to antiquity. It's not some creation of modernity, whether we're talking about the 1700s or the 20th century.
The Geneva Conventions, the Nuremberg Tribunal, the Geneva Conventions and the Nuremberg Tribunal?
Yes, those exist, but international laws, the jus gentium goes back to antiquity. However, unfortunately, a lot of our liberal friends think history began a few decades ago.
The League of Nations was useless. It fell apart, and that's why we had the UN. That's why we had the Geneva Convention.
Right, I'm talking about millennia ago,
because we looked at piles of millions of dead bodies, and we said that's a bad idea. We looked at piles of millions of dead bodies and said, that's a bad idea. Let's not do that anymore. Let's actually have a framework and rules and laws. And Trump is blowing that up. By the way, he bombed fishing boats from Venezuela, Trinidad, and Tobago, and Colombia. He just did the regime change in Venezuela. He bombed Yemen and Somalia, and Nigeria, and Iran. He's threatening Greenland and Panama and Canada.
And honestly, like, Kyle makes a good point here, because a lot of people have asked this question: why do we have the right? Like, why do the United States have the right? And I think, like, we might be able to answer that question, and we might have our own answers to that question. Let's just say that. But then a couple of people have said, what kind of example are we setting? Are we telling a country like China that they can do something like that? You know, are we telling a country like Russia that they can do something like that? So, I mean, I think it's a good question, you know, but I know it's not a question that a lot of people want to answer right now with what just happened. So let's keep watching.
Canada and Cuba and Mexico, and you sit there the whole time.
I fucking hate this fucking lizard creature, man. Just look at him talk, bro. He's such a fake person. He's not even a real person. This is what conservatism does to these talking heads. Same thing with J.D. Vance. Same thing with all of these fucking women with the MAGA face, the fucking that shit, whatever the fuck they're doing to their face. They're skinwalkers, bro. They're not even real humans anymore, okay? It's like, they're narco terrorists. Some people are happy about that. It's like, what the fuck was that? What the fuck? You're not even a guy. Can you be a human being for a second, right? Now, okay, this is the white supremacy shining through. Okay, so you want to believe that they're Venezuelan drug dealers. One, you have no proof of that, sir. You know why? You weren't able to actually investigate and go through due process. You blew them to smithereens. How do you know every single person on that boat was a drug dealer, if any? How do you know that there weren't people who were there against their will? You see, this is the ridiculousness. And are we now saying that the penalty for smuggling drugs, dealing drugs is now execution? Are you ready to start executing every single person that we capture selling drugs? Now, I know the need.
You always wondered why that app didn't exist. Now you can make it. Meet Replit Agent.
Jerk reaction for fucking white supremacist, racist conservatives is like, yeah, because you think all drug dealers are black people and Mexicans, but a large percentage of people in prison are white people. People in prison for selling drugs are white people. Are we now ready to start mass executing white Americans for selling drugs, I know you don't think all of the fucking meth heads and fentanyl addicts in middle America, the white trash drug addicted fiends, are getting all their dope from black people. No, it's white selling white people drugs. Okay? Are we ready to now start mass executing these people for selling drugs? No. Of course not. These people, they are evil. They are sick, bro.
Iran. He's threatening Greenland and Panama and Canada and Cuba and Mexico. And you sit there the whole time and act like it's okay. Is there anything Trump can do, Michael Knowles, that you would say, I condemn it, and you hop off the Trump train, or are you going to tickle his taint for the rest of your fucking life?
No, there have been plenty of Trump policies that I've criticized because he's only right about 99.78% of the time. So the First Step Act, I thought, was a good step. But I would say the rest. Excuse me. I would say the rest of the administration is.
But that's exactly what he's doing. Just fucking double hand gripping, doing the Gawk 3000, bro. Jesus, get off his nuts, man. Wipe that shit off your mouth.
Very successful. What's your problem?
My problem is that you're a cuck and you're a hack and you're not an independent thinker and you're meat riding Trump and you know that what he's doing is illegitimate and you don't care.
I just answered your question and I corrected.
Congratulations. You rented your brain to a war criminal pedophile rapist. I hope you're happy.
A war criminal pedophile rapist? You brought up international law, and you made a very false point, a dumb point, which is that international law began only a few hundred years ago. I corrected you.
Joking? Did you see that shit? Run that shit back.
False. You brought up international law, and you made a very false point, a dumb point, which is that international law began only a few hundred years ago. I corrected you, and I pointed out that the international law is part of the Western tradition. Excuse me one second. It goes back to antiquity. It's a principle of the jus gentium. And you said, well, international law has failed because of the League of Nations failure, which I think is actually undermining your argument and proving my point and proving Trump's point, because the liberal internationalism that was established by people like Woodrow Wilson did in fact fail, which is why we need to restore an older and more classical conception of the international order, which is precisely what Trump's doing. So I think you've hoisted yourself like your own petard. And then you just make a lot of vulgar sort of non sequiturs because you don't have a leg to stand on.
All right, let me bring in. Let me ask you this question. Piers, let me ask him a question real quick. Tell me the name of the Minister of Defense in Venezuela.
I don't know. Whatever his name
is.
And
that's the problem. You're advocating for a regime change. You don't know the first thing.
I didn't. I just said the opposite. I argued against the regime change.
He actually said the opposite. I heard Michael Knowles say the regime remains there, right? So he said the opposite, in fact. I want to bring in Coleman.
You want the same regime in power. I thought you deposed the dictator, the head of the state, because you had a problem with the way the regime is being ran. If you leave everybody else in place, why would you believe that it's going to change how the regime is being ran? It makes no fucking sense.
Meanwhile, the vice president of Venezuela, Maduro's vice president, her name is Delcy Rodriguez. She just spoke. We've got the audio in now. I want to play for you what she just said to Trump.
We demand the immediate release of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, the only president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
Coming out against Trump. And that is extremely significant, not just because she saw what happened hours ago to the guy on top of her, but also because President Trump, about 2 hours before that video came out, said that Delcy Rodriguez was on board with the U.S. plan. He said that she was willing to do whatever is necessary to, in his words, make Venezuela great again, and that she was doing what he wanted. Here he is.
Who's going to take over? I mean, there is nobody to take over. You have a vice president who's been appointed by Maduro, and right now she's the vice president, and she's, I guess, the president. She was sworn in as president just a little while ago. She had a long conversation with Marco, and she said, we'll do whatever you need. I think she was quite gracious, but she really doesn't have a choice.
Okay, we'll do whatever you need, she said to Marco Rubio, and that she really doesn't have a choice. And she just said, this is a kidnapping and send him back, and essentially thumbing her nose at Trump.
So he wanted to take out Maduro. Don't give me that cutesy little bit.
Yes, but he made the point that the regime is still... He made the point the regime is still there, and the vice president appears to be much more compliant with running Venezuela the way America would prefer.
We demand the immediate release of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, the only president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
Link to the full debate down below in the description if you want to check it out. Shout out to Kyle Kalinske for sticking it to this fucking twerp.
Yo, shout out to Don, for covering that. You guys head over to Young Don's channel when you get a chance. Shout out to Don. I've been watching him for a while. Shout out to Kyle Kalinske. I like Kyle as well. So, yeah, let's jump into the next clip, guys. I'm not gonna lie. I've watched things by Michael Knowles that I've liked, but this time around, I could tell that he really made a lot of the panel upset. So shout out to Kyle Kalinske, because he definitely, he kept it 100 with him. He dug his heels in, and he was like, hey, it is what it is, And Kyle's usually like that, so shout out to Kyle.
Whoever invented this deserves a raise. Can't believe it's already 2025 and people are still using this old.
Kash Patel and...
All right, Candace Owens grades Donald Trump's second term. She says it was pretty much disastrous. And she talks also about Kash Patel and a lot of other members that are a part of the cabinet. So let's jump right in.
And Dan were saying, we're going to do this with the FBI. Now... they look petrified. They look petrified, actually. There's nothing here, actually, to see about these Epstein files. What are you talking about? If you would take a test and they would automatically flunk you if you didn't put your name on the paper? Yeah. The Epstein thing for me is automatic flunk if you don't put your name on the paper, right? So I'm a mom now, so this was the most important thing to me, was figuring out where the pedophiles are in our society.
Candace Owens just graded Donald Trump's second-term performance, and let's just say she's not exactly giving him straight A's. In this interview with Myron Gaines, she gets into some of the issues she has with Trump, and she raised yet another one later in this clip I want to discuss too, so let's see what she has to say. And what's Trump's grade according to Candace Owens right now? Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
What do you think so far about this switch in politics? What do you think so far about this administration with Trump? Good, bad, ugly.
Sad. Honestly, the first thing that I would say is that it makes me sad, because obviously I spent a lot of time helping Trump get elected, trying to help Trump get elected, and Trump is...
I see a photo right here, yeah.
Yeah, he's a part of my political story, right? A part of my political awakening, if you want to call it that. And it feels to me like when he said... what Epstein files, Are we still talking about the Epstein files? It was just we were so close. We did everything we could. And we were supposed to be fighting a swamp. And then what happened with the Loch Ness Monster, which is Israel, rose up and swallowed our hero whole. So it makes me sad. And I think we all can very clearly see what has happened on the basis of who is now supporting him. The literal Never Trump movement is now supporting Trump and telling us that we're radicals, the people who initially supported Trump. So there's been a complete flip, and they're trying to use this mechanism of psychology to convince us, oh, we just got here, but we noticed this rot, which is the original MAGA movement. It's completely ridiculous. Their tactics aren't working. But I think it also indicates to us that there is something very scary and sinister that is in DC, right? That turns good men, it petrifies good men that go in maybe with the best of intentions, and then they see something else. What happens to these people? We don't know. Where is, day in and day out, Kash Patel and Dan were saying, we're going to do this with the FBI. Now they look petrified. They look petrified, actually. There's nothing here, actually, to see about these Epstein files. What are you talking about? You kind of made your show off of what needed to happen with the Epstein files.
Yeah, she's exactly right about that. And to be clear, she has the perfect assessment.
Yeah, and this was the annoying part, because a lot of people had faith in these people. Some people were like, yeah, listening to Kash Patel before he got to where he is, we thought for sure Kash Patel's going to show us everything we need to know. Dan Bongino's not going to mess around, you know what I mean? Maybe even we'll get some transparency out of Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio. Lots of things that people hoped for and thought, but it actually just didn't turn out that way. So, yeah, when she says that they look petrified, they look terrified, and we see Dan Bongino's exit, I would say, yeah, there's something to what she's saying.
Of how the neocons had co-opted Donald Trump, stole whatever semblance of non-intervention he still had him in, and Frankly, I didn't think he had that much because he exacerbated wars in both Syria and Yemen in his first term and ramped up the bombing in Afghanistan before drawing up plans to, in the future withdraw from there. I commend him for that. He did have generals lying to him about it. But he has been co-opted by the neocons, by the never-Trumpers, who wrote big articles about how they could never support Donald Trump, like Ben Shapiro, who's out there singing his praises, Lindsey Graham, who sided with the Democrats on Russiagate, and he's still in Trump's good graces somehow. But then it's public enemy number one, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie, that helped force the release of these Epstein files, as redacted as they are, that turned against Trump on Israel, Epstein, and spending. For those three issues, you become public enemy number one in Washington. And I think she's exactly right. That was such a watershed moment with a lot of people. When Trump's in that press conference, he says the absolute worst thing you could hear if your presidency was, around a mantra of drain the swamp and America first, and I'll give you transparency to uproot, the rot at the heart of our political system. When you say, I can't believe you're still talking about Epstein. That did it for a lot of people. Not me. I never supported Trump, but I had particularly low expectations, and he still managed to do worse than my already ridiculously low expectations.
So it's sad.
So if you were to rate him, because people have asked me this question, so now I get to ask someone else. What grade would you give him right now at this point, based on, obviously the Epstein files, I agree with you, it's a huge debacle. It's going to probably be a huge negative in his legacy at the end of the day. If you had to grade his presidency so far within, we're 11 months in roughly, what would you say?
So I would say I'm biased. So if you're asking me to grade, you know how you would have those teachers where if you would take a test and they would automatically flunk you if you don't put your name on the paper?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The Epstein thing for me is like automatic flunk if you don't put your name on the paper, right? So I'm a mom now, so this was the most important thing to me, was figuring out where the pedophiles are in our society. And
that was your number one voting.
This for me, becoming a mother, because you have to remember, Epstein, I did a partial series, a mini series on what we discovered about him. He just got pulled to the ranks, right? Bankrupted Americans, same thing with the Maxwell family, bankrupted people in England, and was allowed to do this. He had absolutely no background. He was given access to children. He had an office on Harvard campus despite only having a high school diploma, which I can't even verify his high school diploma, if I'm being honest with you. And this was going to show us everything. He had access to Hollywood. He was working with Weinstein. He had some notorious fight with Harvey Weinstein right before Harvey went down. So now I'm kind of going back in my mind and thinking that's a question I should probably ask Harvey Weinstein, is what they were fighting about. And he had access to models. I mean, this man was just handed the keys to Les Wexner's empire, which even how that empire started has got a shady story with a guy who said that Les Wexner was the literal devil. He was the guy who controlled Victoria's Secret. He said, this man is evil. And then suddenly that guy jumps off the Golden Gate Bridge and decides to keep his company to Les Wexner. That doesn't really make sense. So we had this rare opportunity to really understand how the Matrix was put together, in my view. And Trump took us to this line and then balked. And I'm not sure why he did. Okay,
Yeah, I think she's saying it straight up there. That's a great assessment of the situation. It's true that a lot of Trump's voters, a lot of his support base, a lot of the diehard MAGA activists didn't vote for Trump with Epstein transparency at the centerpiece of their interests. But in my estimation, the debacle that is the Epstein cover-up, and that's what it is, they lied through their teeth. We know that categorically because the FBI had memos showing that they entertained the notion that he was sex trafficking beyond himself, that there were as many as 10 co-conspirators, despite the lies of Kash Patel under oath in a congressional testimony session. We know that. But, here's the thing about the Epstein scandal. Even if you preferred Trump for different reasons, whether it was the perception that he would end the Ukraine war, that he would stop the spending, we'd have Doge to come in and kill $2 trillion in government spending, was never going to happen. That was a total scam because Republicans don't support slashing government, despite all of the rhetoric. Maybe it was one of those other things, right?
But at the centerpiece of Trump, it was this idea that you're going to uproot the corruption that you see in the corrupt political system at the top with well-connected people like Epstein and his associates. And when you can't even divulge the truth about a child sex trafficking operation and the known ironclad proven ties that we now know Epstein had to Israel, it gets just people off that train. They're off the bandwagon, and it's easy to see why. And Trump has no one else but himself to blame for that, for elevating these people like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino to these positions, making livings off talking about Epstein and transparency. And the fact that Biden was concealing this, and he was too. But Trump, he didn't promise anything else than that. Trump did. He didn't deliver. Instead of deliver, he covered it up. And we have some pretty good evidence as to why he did that.
Maybe it's because he almost survived an assassination attempt. He survived an assassination attempt.
Yeah, two of them.
Two of them. And maybe they put him in a room and said, here's how it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to try not to judge him because I don't know what he is going through. But for me, the Epstein files was the name on the paper.
So, what are your thoughts on the current news? Because it just resurfaced again. They're, in the process right now of getting everything classified. I understand that there were a bunch of emails that came out. And it's coming back up again. I can tell because I'm seeing nothing but CNN clips on it. Anytime they love to hit Trump when it comes to this Epstein thing.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on the latest information that came out recently with the emails and everything else like that?
When he initially balked on discussing Epstein and Pam Bondi, did the whole crazy bit, I was told that it was because there was donors he was protecting, and that makes sense to me. I've never felt, and I'm a pretty good vibe person, Trump's not into kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the nature of the emails, was he at a party when people should just think about that. People say, oh, they exchange, like he was on his plane, never on the island, but like was on the plane, or was at a party. If you were at a, you live in Miami, if you were at a party, the idea that somebody could be at any club that you were at or any party that you were at has somebody that's underage and looks like she could be 18, and that doesn't really track to me as any evidence of anything other than the fact that he was at a party once and Jeffrey Epstein was very clearly running a sophisticated network and a blackmail ring.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go off vibes for this. I love Candace. I adore her. I think she has the right general take on this, but I wouldn't go off vibes when it comes to, Trump's complicity with Epstein's crimes. Now, it's true we haven't seen like a silver bullet that proves that Trump was guilty of the crimes that Epstein was associated with, but at the same time, he thought there was reason to cover this thing up for 11 months. And these files do show, the closest tangential link to Trump and possible connections is a taxi driver overheard a conversation years later, supposedly, with Trump, where the taxi driver determined that he believed Trump was talking about a previous victim that this taxi driver said had accused.
Okay, just let me go back a little bit. I want to react to something real quick.
It's because he almost survived an assassination attempt. He survived an assassination attempt.
Yeah, two of them.
Two of them. And maybe they put him in a room and said, here's how it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to try not to judge him because I don't know what he is going through. But for me, the Epstein files was the name on the paper.
So, what are your thoughts on
livings off talking about Epstein and transparency, and the fact that Biden was concealing this, and he was too. But Trump, he didn't promise anything else than that. Trump did. He didn't deliver. Instead of deliver, he covered it up. And we have some pretty good evidence as to why he did that.
Maybe it's because he almost survived an assassination attempt. He survived an assassination attempt.
Yeah, two of them.
Two of them. And maybe they put him in a room and said, here's how it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to try not to judge him because I don't know what he is going through. But for me, the Epstein files was the name on the paper.
So, what are your thoughts on the current news? Because it just resurfaced again. They're, in the process right now of getting everything classified. I understand that there were a bunch of emails that came out. And And, and it's coming back up again. I can tell because I'm seeing nothing but CNN clips on it. Anytime they love to hit Trump when it comes to this Epstein thing. What are your thoughts on the latest information that came out?
Specifically called out the CNN clips, right? That's why, sometimes we got to pay attention to the little details, right? Because some people will be like, this is why when people jump in my chat and they're like, oh my God, why are you reacting to CNN? Fake news, fake news. I'm like, dude, believe me, I know it's fake news. But we got to watch everything because both sides lie. So we can get all the facts and put them together. But I love the way that they just straight out said it. Like, yeah, they like to absolutely crush Trump when it comes to these Epstein files when it's CNN.
The emails and everything else like that.
When he initially bulked on discussing Epstein and Pam Bondi, did the whole crazy bit, I was told that it was because there was donors he was protecting, and that makes sense to me. I've never felt, and I'm a pretty good vibe person, Trump's not into kids, right? So the nature of the emails, was he at a party when people should just think about that. People say, oh, they exchange, like he was on his plane, not on the island, but like was on the plane or was at a party. If you were at you were living in Miami, if you were at a party, the idea that somebody could be at any club that you were at or any party that you were at has somebody that's underage and looks like she could be 18, and that doesn't really track to me as any evidence of anything other than the fact that he was at a party once and Jeffrey Epstein was very clearly running a sophisticated network and a blackmail ring.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go off vibes for this. I love Candace. I adore her. I think she has the right general take on this, but I wouldn't go off vibes when it comes to, Trump's complicity with Epstein's crimes. Now, it's true we haven't seen like a silver bullet that proves that Trump was guilty of the crimes that Epstein was associated with, but at the same time, he thought there was reason to cover this thing up for 11 months. And these files do show, the closest tangential link to Trump and possible connections is a taxi driver overheard a conversation years later, supposedly, with Trump, where the taxi driver determined that he believed Trump was talking about a previous victim that this taxi driver said had accused Trump of being raped underage. Now, that victim died under mysterious circumstances at a young age, by the way, but at no point did she accuse Trump herself. So this taxi driver apparently was taking evidence from what he heard Trump say on the phone in his cab, from what I understand, and applying that to him. Now, that's not a silver bullet. That's the closest thing we've seen. But either way, Trump is guilty of covering this up. So I will judge him no matter what. Now, I think the most interesting stuff that Trump wanted to cover up, especially given his closeness to the Israel lobby, to Miriam Adelson, was Epstein's clear connections to the Israeli government, doing literal direct work on behalf of that government, setting up security arrangements between Israel and Mongolia, Israel and the Ivory Coast. Ryan Grimm and Murtaza Hussein at Dropsite News have excellent pieces about that. How he arranged wire transfers with a known spy, prominent spy in Israel named Yoni Koren. How he was writing full speeches for Ehud Barak, his good buddy, the previous prime minister, served that way in the 90s. He was also a defense minister when Epstein wrote him a speech that he was setting up back channel negotiations with Barak and Putin for how to prop up the Syrian civil war. All this stuff related to Israel. Actually marketing for investors in what was called the Leviathan Project, west of Haifa, Israel, a big oil field as well, which Benjamin Netanyahu just announced the creation of. So that is what we're getting here. That is stuff that's interesting. It does implicate Trump in a cover-up, and it probably is because it's dangerous to Israel. It's probably for other things, too. We don't have all the answers. There's lots of redactions, missing links, but I think, the embarrassment toward the Israeli-U.S. relationship is a big part of it alone, personally.
Don't think that whatever they have on Epstein, with Trump and Epstein, is going to implicate Trump in any of that stuff. Yeah. And I've been around him. Trump has a type, and I have never felt that vibe from him at all. But I do think he's protecting some of his donors. I do believe that. Because I look at them, and they just creep me out. And he took a lot of money from Miriam Adelson, the Adelson family, hundreds of millions of dollars from Miriam Adelson. And I think that's kind of the beginning of everything. So when they started leaking these emails, I read it as like a public threat to him. Maybe they're arguing about something in the background and he's holding the line on something. So because they obviously have all the Epstein stuff. He was their blackmail guy, you know? And so if people don't listen, they probably do a little trickle. That's how I read it. I read it as like a public threat and they want something from him and they're going to be like, capitulate or we will hit you with everything they have. And we need to have a leader that just comes right out in the press conference and says, they have this about me. They've been threatening me with it. I'm going to tell them to release everything. I'm going to hold the line.
That'd be nice, right? And yeah, they could have blackmail on Trump. That would explain an awful lot, wouldn't it? But it could be just his closeness with the Israel lobby. He could be blackmailed by the Israel lobby too. But it seems like his implications, his intuitions, are strictly with Israel first. And it was that way since the first term. So if he was blackmailed, I don't think it was any time recent. In his first term, he did wipe out Soleimani. He shredded the JCPOA. He moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. He signed the Abraham Accords, all things that the Israel lobby desperately wanted for him. And then this term, they got, a war against Iran, which might be renewed. That seems like it's on the table now. A bankrolling of a genocide, a defending Netanyahu no matter what in the Knesset, trying to get them to drop charges on him, and allowing Netanyahu to bomb Qatar, another ostensibly U.S. ally, but hey, in the grand scheme of things, Israel always comes first to this administration and many others, but Trump more so. He's the most pro-Israel president. But that's what you're getting. He could be blackmailed. I don't know. I think that there is reason to think that Trump could be covering up for people that are very closely related to him, to Republicans, etc. That would explain this behavior too. It's probably an all of the above type thing.
People would cheer. We wouldn't even care. We'd be like, okay, as long as you're not implicated in harming children, right? I can deal with you being at a party that Epstein was at and finding out that whatever it is that they have on you. That's my gut instinct about the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that I think he doesn't give me the vibe that he's like doing that type of thing with children. But I do think that maybe there's something in there that looks really bad optically, and that might be why, or to protect donors, like you said, because I look at it like if there was something really bad like that, the Democrats would have exposed that during the Biden administration if there really was. So, that's another thing as well.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with Myron there. I think the most plausible explanation is that the Democrats would not have divulged that. The people in the know, the people that were entrenched in the deep state close to the Democrats would not have divulged that if their own tribe, if some of their own group members, maybe very prominent ones, were also implicated in the same materials. It perfectly stands to reason that they would treat this the same way that Trump did, but there were no promises by the Democrats under Biden's term to release this data, this content, the Epstein files at all. Trump's administration did promise that, and then it turned out to be a total charade where they're giving out fake binders with already released documents to influencers. The spectacle of that and how ridiculous it was. Then the DOJ memo that came out, no blackmail, there was no connections to anyone else, no sex trafficking, even though, again, we know that's proven false by the actual releases. That it was a Democratic hoax, said Trump. I can't believe we're still talking about Epstein, said Trump. Then you're not my real supporter if you want answers on this. And then, hey, let's not talk about Epstein. Let's talk about these floods in Houston. And then Mike Johnson saying, if we get this discharge bill out, it will compromise the entire justice system.